Greetings, users and programs. This is Etari Living Sacrifice, and today we are going to talk about why we should never give up, never surrender, and keep moving forward. The new DragonBall FighterZ game has taken the gaming world by storm. It's being hailed by many as the best Dragon Ball game yet. Like many of you, I was fired up to try it and have really been enjoying it so far. I did the practice mode, I learned some basics and thought I would try my hand at the online multiplayer, fully expecting to get my butt kicked. Then I realized, wait, everyone else is just as new as I am. I won some, I lost some, learned from it, and I'm steadily getting better and better. I've had a couple very memorable matches, and some of the most memorable matches I've had so far were the ones where I lost. I had a couple matches where I got my opponent down to only a sliver of life left, like so low that chip damage would have taken them out, and I had at least one character with full health, and they ended up having these fantastic comebacks and ended up beating me and winning in the end. I have to give a salute to these players that beat me, because many people would have seen the situation and just put the controller down, given up, or even tried to leave the match or disconnect, hoping that the game wouldn't count it as a loss. They stuck it out till the very end, and it paid off. There's an absolutely phenomenal movie called Galaxy Quest with Tim Allen, which is a Star Trek spoof where the show's catchphrase is, "Never give up, never surrender." I am here to encourage you to do just that and never give up, never surrender, and keep moving forward. To give you a little backstory, I joined the Marine Corps straight out of high school. 3 days after graduation, I was standing on those yellow footprints in Paris Island. While I was at boot camp, I was doing very well, and they offered me a chance to go to Officer Candidate School, or OCS, to become an officer of Marines, and offered to basically pay for my college education. Well, to make a long story short, I ended up getting injured with less than 2 weeks left to graduate from OCS, and they said I wasn't going to be able to return. I was devastated. It was the first time in my life I had ever really failed at anything, and all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, I had no plan, no direction, no idea what I was going to do with my life. A friend of mine ended up handing a book to me called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by a guy named Robert Kiyosaki. What made him recommend that book to me, I have no idea, and I will be forever grateful, because that book explained how to become successful in the world of business in a way I had never heard or thought of before, and inspired me to a new path in life. I had never thought about becoming wealthy before. It had never occurred to me that getting rich was a game that a guy like me that came from a very normal middle-class life could even play. I related to his story in so many ways. He had even joined the Marine Corps in his youth as well. In the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he describes the 4 basic ways that we can make money in the world. Number 1, we can be an employee and work for someone else, where our income is reliant on someone else's decisions. Number 2, we can become self-employed and work for ourselves, like a doctor, lawyer, or dentist, for example, and our income is based solely on ourselves and our abilities. Number 3, we can become a business owner, where we own a system that works for us and provides opportunities for people that prefer to be employees, like a franchise, for example. And number 4, we can become investors and have our money work for us. Quote his second book, Cash Flow Quadrant, Robert states, "To be successful, you need to learn to overcome your fear of being rejected and stop worrying about what other people say and think about you." So many times I've met people who hold themselves back simply because of what their friends might say if they did something different. One of the reasons my rich dad encouraged me to work in sales for the Xerox Corporation for 4 years wasn't because he liked copiers, but because he wanted me to overcome my shyness and fear of rejection. To be successful, you must also learn to lead people. Working with different kinds of people is the hardest thing about business. The people I've met who are successful in any business are those who are leaders. The ability to get along with and inspire people is a priceless skill, a skill that can be learned. So after I read that book, I did just that. I got into the first sales job I found with a company called Sidcore, selling office supplies business to business with a guy named Jaime Hepp who owned the Los Angeles office. Jaime was an absolutely fantastic mentor and even offered me a chance to build and own my own office, build my own business, and grow into multiple territories if I mentored others on how to duplicate the system. I worked with them for about 2 years and learned more in those 2 years than I did from my entire time in school. I learned how to overcome my shyness and most of my fear of rejection. In the end though, I failed in that endeavor not because of the system, but because of my lack of leadership ability. I still had some things to learn. I ended up taking a job selling carpet and flooring with a company called Empire Today. You've probably seen the commercials.
800-588-2300 Empire
Today.
I used the stuff I had learned from my time working with Sidcore and quickly became one of their top sales reps, making almost $150,000 that year. It was easy to want to work so hard because I had a plan for that money. I ended up using most of that money to try opening my own business again. My next endeavor was to build a business called a LAN center, or what they call a PC bong in Korea. If you've never been in a LAN center before, it's basically like a never-ending LAN party. We had a large room filled with PCs, Xboxes, and PlayStations, all hooked up together so people could come in and all play together in the same room. It was every gamer's dream. I had a lot of fun with that business, but again, my lack of leadership ability was the business's downfall. I thought that once I opened the business and hired a couple of people to run it, then the business would just run itself, and I never put together a successful system that was teachable, learnable, much less duplicatable, and spent most of my time just playing video games with the customers, and the business collapsed. I'll never forget the feeling of looking at the empty space that had once held my dream. I felt like I had let those kids that came in every day looking for a place to belong, I felt like I had let them down. I felt like I had let my business partners that had looked to me for guidance down. I remember just breaking down and falling to the floor, bawling like a baby. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I didn't know if I could handle another failure. I floated through life for the next 2 years. I took a job selling life insurance as an independent agent, and basically all I did was just enough to survive. Toward the end of that 2-year period where I was just floating through life, I heard my mentor in the insurance business, who is a very wealthy man, say that most people will only give their all to their dream once in their life. And since 9 out of 10 dreams or businesses fail on the first try, they never have the courage to pick themselves up and give it their all the other 8 times that's necessary. That's exactly what I was doing. I would work just hard enough to barely pay the bills, and I had no intention of giving it my all again. When I heard him say that, I was a little mad at myself. I had read that statistic in Rich Dad Poor Dad all those years ago and thought it wouldn't apply to me. From that point on, I started to get my dream back. I slowly started to build my self-image back up by working a little bit harder every day. I started actively seeking mentorship again. I started reading books on business and leadership again. I started working like I had during my door-to-door sales days. I started putting more money than I needed into my bank account. I started hiring and mentoring insurance agents of my own, and now after many years of struggle, we have agents throughout most of the country, and we are making more money than I thought was possible for someone like me to make, and get to live a life that most others only get to watch through videos on the TV or the internet. We travel the world, we fly on private jets, we stay in world-class resorts and don't have to think about pinching pennies while we're doing it. I don't have to pick and choose which games to buy on Steam. If some of my friends are playing one and some are playing another, I can get both and not have to worry about whether my bills will get paid at the end of the month. While I was playing DragonBall FighterZ and lost those fights in those last moments, I was reminded that the game isn't over till it's over, and even then we have the choice on whether or not to try another round and start a new game, or give up and never pick up the controller again. The only way failure is final is to stop trying. It's time for you to make a comeback. You may have heard of what might be the most famous comeback in gaming history, which was a Street Fighter 3 fight between a guy named Daigo Umehara and a guy named Justin Wong. With only a sliver of health left, Daigo parries every single one of Justin Wong's super arts combo and unleashes his own in retaliation to win the game. It's time to create a memorable story that others will talk about for ages. A story isn't memorable if there is no struggle. We love hearing comeback stories and stories about how the underdog triumphs. If there's no conflict, then there's no story to tell. If Daigo had have just dominated Wong and the match wasn't so close, then most of us never would have even heard about it. I am going to encourage you, even if you have failed on that dream of yours, the game of life isn't over until you are dead. It's okay. Try again. It might not necessarily be the same game or the same dream that you had before, and that's fine. Get a new dream. Jump onto someone else's dream until you either get your own again or fall in love with the dream that you jumped on and make it yours. If this video has helped you in any way, then help your fellow gamers out and share it with someone. If this video helps one fellow gamer adapt their way of thinking and grow into the type of person that they've always dreamed of becoming, then my time has been well spent. If this video has helped you in any way, give it a big thumbs up on that like button, subscribe, leave a comment below, and tell us how. Until next time, keep moving forward, and we'll see you on the next one.
If you wanna know the God's honest truth.